Hey, it's your boys. It's Anime Parley. Yeah, we are here. We are talking about Kuma. Big fans of Kuma around here, but we'll get into it in a second. Like I said, it's your boy Killer Cam. I'll let the rest of the crew just jump right in and introduce themselves.
What up, y'all? Peace and blessings. It's your boy, Mr. Wild and Free.
Yo, what's up? It's Moogie Mike. Kuma's my father, the All Father.
Yo, it's Bash Ketchum. Forgive my tan. Long weekend.
Yeah, you look like you got like makeup on or something like
Good.
that. I was gonna comment on that and say that it looked a little
Okay.
weird, but
I also
Okay,
got
buddy.
tan.
Hey, yo.
Hey,
all
yo.
right.
You got
Anyways,
chiseled. Your cheeks got chiseled. What'd you do?
I think I just shaved.
Shave my
I look
beard.
fat. I look
Oh,
fat when I
got
got a little
Botox.
beard. So I shave it down and then
I look like a kid
I
with
got
no
my
beard.
my blue steel
hilarious.
Magnum Zoolander look. Okay, so we're talking Kuma. Obviously, if you've seen the thumbnail of the video, we're talking about Kuma being a savior. If you've noticed in the last couple of videos that we've done for kind of evergreen, kind of discussion based topics, we started with Emu, talked a whole bunch of shit, pissed a lot of people off, but that kind of led to insights, right, in relation to all the hate comments that we got, that people thought Luffy was some kind of a liberator. So we talked about that in our last video. Luffy is not the liberator. We basically kind of jumped in and discussed what is Luffy's role? What does he actually want? Is he a liberator by intention or is he a liberator by coincidence? Obviously, we here believe it's more of the latter than the former. But I think the question then basically begs itself, well, who is the liberator? I think there's two people that we can make that argument for. I think obviously Dragon, right, is literally a self-proclaimed liberator. He's trying to collapse basically nations within the world government. That sounds bad, but really kind of break them from the yoke of the world government. But then more specifically and more topically, since, obviously the anime is still in the Egghead arc and we're still in this Kuma flashback, we wanted to just kind of sit and talk and reflect about Kuma. Kuma as a character, Kuma as a potential liberator. I mean, I think the activeness of that role is questionable. Like, is he an active liberator? Who knows? Because we don't even know if he has free will at this point. To some degree, he does, but we'll see what happens and if he can regain his memories, which he should be able to do, and we'll talk about that as well because there's a good theory on that. But we really just want to focus this particular video on really just a deep character study of Kuma, because Kuma, although he might have some more kind of road left in front of him, I think for the end of the series, I think that he'll probably get his memories back, probably be involved in the great war against the world government. It just feels right for his character to like truly get his get back against particularly the Gorosei and just their whole system of slavery, since he was a slave and ultimately they kind of killed his parents. But for now, really kind of his arc, if it is complete, him being on Elbaf, whether he'll be revived, what that actually means, and really kind of the role that he serves for the story as a whole, since he does track back pretty early on in the story. So that out of the way, just want to kind of bring it to you guys. What are your thoughts on Kuma? Obviously, we're in the anime right now. We're kind of getting his flashback. I think largely Kuma is a beloved figure within the One Piece community. There's no bad vibes with Kuma. But I guess as it relates to him being kind of a liberator-esque figure, I mean, what do you feel like he represents? And anybody can jump in.
Yeah, I think that he Kuma is the forsaken liberator, right? And what I mean by that is time and time again, whenever he is in a position to save, he is often reflected on as a perpetrator or someone who has done wrong, right? And that's whether by narrative of the world government or by, the country for the sake of, when he liberated the people of his island, that kind of turned into him being Kuma the tyrant, right? And it's like, well, there was nothing tyrannical about his actions. And also, when we first got a moment to witness the combative nature of Kuma against the Straw Hats, we were very much distraught, right? Like, wow, like he's separated us, like the Straw Hats, from one another and really set off an entire motion for the time skip. And in that time, we didn't know to look at him as a savior, right? But what he was actually doing in that moment was saving the Straw Hats. And so there is that aspect of him being this forsaken savior where it's like in the moments and the positions in which he is intending to save others, he is still looked at as the perpetrator. And so I find that to be a very interesting aspect of his character story.
Sure. Who else?
For me, I think he's not really to me like a liberator as much as just like the most selfless character in the book, or the embodiment of like selflessness. Just like through his love and like what he is, he's just like he's the best father, and he just like goes throughout his entire life just doing what he knows to be right. But I think I agree with you that Dragon is like the liberator.
Bash.
Yeah, I agree too. I mean, my take on this is that as I'm watching this being animated in real time, I'm thinking to me, man, this is to me one of the most saddest stories in One Piece. And I know it's at a current, part in the anime, but just seeing it on screen is like, man, it's super sad what he's going through and everything he's sacrificing for Bonnie to get healed. Um, and just yeah, man, how can you not like Kuma? Because the guy he's a pacifist. He's the pacifista, the original, but he actually fights in a way that is peaceful. Obviously with his devil fruit, which I think is interesting because he kind of pushes things away, and that's his character all around by nature. He's just kind of pushes things away instead of destroys them, and he does get a bad rap, to Mr. Waterfree's point, just to the public eye, but he's actually a really good person, which I think is dope.
Okay. All right, so yeah, let's just kind of jump in. I don't want to do like a full kind of history of Kuma, but I do want to kind of point out interesting aspects of his character that kind of lay down this foundation of whether Kuma like is a liberator, but I think more specifically the way that he's positioned in just, the visual kind of illusions. He's a guy who stands really tall, has a very straight, kind of posture. He holds a Bible in his hand. Like, as a kid, he's literally like proselytizing out of a church, right? So there's a lot of obviously kind of Christian religious kind of symbolism with his character, with his character design. We never really kind of get an explanation as to why he carries a Bible. It just seems almost kind of like a prop for him. Obviously, he kind of operates healing the sick and the old and the infirm and the poor, whatever, out of the church.
I mean, he prays.
Like
He prays
literally,
often.
puts his healing hands on them and basically eliminates their pain. Like how much more do you need for a allegory of like a Christ-like figure within One Piece than that, right? Aside from that, I think what's interesting is the way in which we're introduced. And just real quick, Bash, you made a really good point in terms of what are Kuma's powers. Kuma's powers are basically repelling. Obviously there's a lot of different applications of this, but ultimately kind of repelling things or deflecting things. Deflecting things obviously is more kind of like a self-defense kind of thing. You can't hurt him with, projectile attacks or whatever, just because, his paw pads will allow him to deflect them in different directions, whatever. Really interesting kind of application of a self-defense kind of technique. On top of that, basically he kind of can create, bombs or whatever you want to call it, blasts with just the air, right? And it's kind of this interesting way of using the environment itself in like its most harmless state to create like an attack, right? So even the attack itself is like created from nothing. It's created from something that is ultimately kind of harmless, which is just like kind of the air, right? Which I also think is really interesting. The reason why I think this kind of question about Kuma and intentionality and will, and we'll get into his like actual backstory very briefly in a second. But the reason why I feel like it's interesting is because within Egghead, when we get back to the post flashback, right, of Kuma arrives from Mary Joie specifically, because he basically teleports over there from Kamabaka Kingdom, basically to climb all the way up and basically just kind of like attack and wreak havoc or whatever. We don't really know why he's there because the Revolutionary Army took him to Kamabaka Kingdom, but then he poofs back over there. He climbs the Red Line. We're not really sure why. And then he poofs again, right? Because he gets confronted by, I want to say it's Akainu. Actually, it is Akainu.
Yeah, it was.
Confirmed.
He gets confronted and then basically just poofs. Now, where does he go? He goes to Egghead Island, literally in the moment where Bonnie is about to be killed by Saturn. And he basically, blocks the attack, saves Bonnie, and then he goes on the offensive and then attacks Saturn. And it's a really interesting display of like a father protecting their child and really kind of reuniting with them and all this other kind of stuff. Even if it's questionable how much of that is intentional and based on his own desires, right? However, what is interesting about that scene is we learn from Vegapunk, who's basically thinking, and we see his thoughts, obviously, what the heck is happening? Like, Saturn made me put a self-destruct bomb in Kuma and then made me press it, right? But I didn't actually put a bomb in there. I put a kill switch, as in Kuma will basically just be deactivated. He no longer has any will, but this will basically stop him from ever attacking, his daughter or anybody that he doesn't want to attack. Like, I'll just shut this experiment down, right? He is shocked when Kuma, in that moment, is acting completely of his own volition. Now, obviously, we haven't heard Kuma speak. We haven't heard or seen really Kuma like move in a way, because obviously he's very heavily damaged, but move in a way that implies that he is moving with, to some degree of complete free will and consciousness, right? He seems like even within that arc, he kind of gets carried around and stuff like that. But
in the most recent anime Killer Cam, they did confirm that that Vegapunk gave him a little bit of free will for the first year of his transformation. Basically, after that, I don't know how he conjures it up on his own. But
yeah, that is a point. So I'm glad you brought that up. That is a point where the way in which he's able to, because basically he asked Vegapunk, I have a couple things, like, after you wipe out my consciousness, like, just here's a couple things to program for me to do that I want to do, right? And he specifically name drops, I want to protect the Thousand Sunny. I want to wait for them to reunite back in Sabati Archipelago. So just program me to do that, because I want to help Luffy, because I believe in him. I think that, Nika is a legend, but if Nika were to exist, it would be basically Luffy. Like, I believe in him, right? So I want to help him as much as I can. And obviously, we got to get these flashbacks where Kuma has been observing Luffy, not just because he's Dragon's son, but because he's Dragon's son and he also finds him interesting, through basically the start of his journey. Like, before Luffy sets sail, before he leaves, he's practicing his moves on the little island or whatever. And Kuma's watching him, and we see that flashback where Kuma's basically just kind of observing him. Obviously, Kuma sees all these different iterations where Luffy takes down Crocodile. Luffy obviously lands at Thriller Bark, right? And, part of that is the reason why Kuma's there in the first place, because, Kuma is sent there to protect or to help or to aid Gecko Moria, just because, the world government can't take the loss of face from Luffy defeating yet another Shichibukai. So he's always in these kind of interesting moments, but I think the kind of getting back to the main conceit, and I'm going to pause here and kind of get you guys' thoughts, is like, we know that will is Haki. Haki is will, right? Like, these are, literally Haki means will, but like, these are synonymous in the sense of will being such an important aspect of the series, in particular as it relates to free will and consciousness and the ability to choose for Kuma. Like, why do you guys think Kuma is able to act in a way that defies logic, defies science, defies the programming of Vegapunk with that kill switch? Like, because even Vegapunk is confused. He's like, I don't know if it's because he's a buccaneer. Like, what do you guys think kind of the question behind Kuma still being there in sense of maybe a soul or willpower or whatever you want to call it? What are you guys' thoughts?
I think that what Oda displayed with Kuma showing up in the way that he did for Bonnie in that moment was Oda's interpretation of something that I've actually seen percolating around social media a bit, right? Like, I don't know if y'all have ever seen those viral posts about the dad moments, like when dads do this very intuitive, almost preconceptual saving of their child, right? Like, there was a video of a guy who leaned up from his couch, grabbed a pillow, and tossed it over before the kid even fell. And
Yeah,
as soon as the pillow got there, that's when the kid fell over on top of
tucked
him.
it right on his head. Yeah,
Tucked it
perfect
right
throw.
under his head. And so it's like this premonition that a father has about the safety of their child. And I think that's what Oda was really trying to encapsulate with how Kuma was showing up for the protection of Bonnie in that moment, and how that kind of fatherly protection and premonition is something that could supersede just a free will level, like cognition, like, oh, like I want to go to the grocery store. No, it's something beyond that. And so I think that's what Oda was really trying to interpret with that scene.
Moogie.
Thank you. I think
You have the speaking.
I mean, I like that a lot, but I think alongside that, it's just one of the most cliche thing in any story. Alongside his selflessness is just an unbelievable amount of love, and he's just got that love, and he's got responsibility and stuff. But I really think it's like he, in every single scenario, has been the most extreme level of selflessness, and like he's an immovable force. Like he will continue onward. He's sacrificed himself like without even a thought. So like when something's happening, he senses it. He's gone. Like he'll be there. I just think it's like it's not. His hockey's at a certain level. It's not something based in physics, and I think that's the point. It's like something that isn't able to be understood.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's definitely fair. The idea of, and obviously it is a little bit of a cliche, like the power of love in a shonen or anime or whatever. But I think this is probably because, Oda is a father. He's got a daughter, and he borrows a lot of these themes. You can kind of tell in the second half of One Piece with like Kairos and Rebecca in Dressrosa, or I want to say probably I don't know. I'm sure there's like allusions in Wano, whether it's Odin or Toki or whatever, right? In relation to how they treat Momonosuke and Hiyori. There's a lot of these elements of like parent sacrificing for child and doing basically anything in order to protect them and to make sure that they're happy, safe, and healthy. I think another example of this is I forget the girl's name in Wano, where her dad had like the afro. He gets put to death. Moogie, you know his name. Yasue, thank you. And then like the crying girl or whatever. There's just kind of these continuous themes of like particularly fathers and daughters, which is interesting. But aside from that, I mean, I do think this is a moment where I do think there's a lingering aspect of consciousness in Kuma, and I think it's supposed to defy scientific reality, right? In the sense of
just jumping in, Toko was the daughter of Yasue. I just had to double check that.
Toko.
Because I was forgetting that as well.
But yeah, I think it does defy reality in the sense of it's not supposed to have a scientific explanation. I don't think the answer that Oda's trying to give is Kuma is able to still retain consciousness because he's a buccaneer and his body's different, and the kill switch just didn't work. I think it is supposed to be like there's a soul that's still in Kuma, and because he is so loving and protective of his daughter, his body is still kind of acting in a way that allows him to enact his own sense of intention and will vis-a-vis saving her. I want to transition real quick because I think this presents an interesting opportunity to kind of look at where we're at now. So the way that Egghead ends is obviously the crew escapes. They have the help of the giants. Kuma doesn't self-destruct. I think a lot of fans thought like he was going to, myself included, by the way, was going to sacrifice himself in this giant explosion or something like that in order to help the Straw Hats get away. Obviously, it doesn't happen. He is on, or we see him on the boat escaping to Elbaf. So his body is currently in Elbaf, right? They are trying to figure out how to kind of restore his memories and kind of get his consciousness back. There is an interesting aspect of, we are shown that his ability allows for the duplication of memories. He does that to himself to basically create a data bank of his memories so that Vegapunk can basically kind of continue to store them, right? And Vegapunk asks, he goes, okay, is this like a, you know, like if somebody touches us or something like that, like, does that mean that your memories go away? And he says, no. He's like, it's just basically a copy. You know, you'll touch it, you'll see them, you'll absorb them, whatever. But like, I still am the person who has the original memory. So, you know, it's basically just like a copy. The interesting thing about that is what it presents as far as an opportunity, which is Bonnie has the ability to mimic devil fruits. We've seen that, right? Through her devil fruit. It is possible then for her to mimic the paw fruit, just say, oh, you know, paw future or whatever, right? Mimic his abilities and push his memories out of his body, or sorry, push her memories out of her body and then basically transfer them back to him. I think that would be really interesting. You know, she's kind of like Rogue from X-Men, where like, you know, she could just kind of copy abilities and stuff like that. So I think that would be a great application where we can actually see Kuma get some semblance of his humanity restored, particularly since he sacrificed so much. But what are your thoughts on that, Moogie?
I was gonna say, there she is.
Cameo.
Is a little cameo from the wife. Do we think memory is the only thing that has been is affecting Kuma from being Kuma? Is it only memories? Because if he just copied his memories into a bubble and that's what Bonnie was able to look at, when did he ever like get rid of his own memories? And if he did get his memories back, I don't think that would necessarily mean he's not full cyborg.
Well, let me throw this out there. Mr. Wild and Free, can you let the class know what Dr. Hurlug's famous quote is?
When does somebody ever really die?
He's got it.
It's when they are forgotten.
Hey. So, I don't know. I think there is a tie of memories being kind of associated with like consciousness. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think that means like if you have no story that anyone's telling about you, and if you have no legend, that's when you die, not your own personal memory.
I mean, yeah, but we're just kind of being metaphorical here in the sense of like
Yeah.
what is removed from Kuma, right, is one, literally his memories, right? Like they're not removed from him, but he duplicates them because he's like, okay, I'm not going to be able to do anything with these. Here are my memories. You can kind of just, you know, parse out the data or whatever, you know, and Vegapunk goes.
So he still technically has his memories.
He does still
It's just
technically.
not inside of him.
It's, yeah.
I think
but
it's
they
more
are.
so of like, so you know how like the left and the right brain technically operate independently, and then there's the center fold that basically kind of congeals and passes information between the two hemispheres of the brain. I think him losing his consciousness or his free will is more so akin to some type of severance of the brain where
Yes, I
he
think- I
might
agree.
have his consciousness, he might have his memory, but he cannot apply his consciousness and his memory to his physical actions. And whatever has taken over his physical actions is the directive of the world government or the Gorosei.
Yeah.
Correct. But we
That's
do
my
get these
only thought.
instances where he has like these like splashes of free will where he helps
Yeah,
the
right.
Revolutionary Army or he saves
Right.
Bonnie.
And actually, to that point, like, for those who may or may not have seen it, it's kind of funny. I brought up the Severed thing. It kind of reminds me of the show Severance in that way. And so there's some interesting quirks
God.
about that for whoever knows about that show.
Is that what
Shout
that
out.
show's about?
That
Is
show
that-
is
like that.
terrible and no one should watch
It's
it.
boring.
My phone down.
It's suspenseful, but in the
Well,
end, no, I'm not
Maybe
sure.
we'll
It's
do
whack,
a-
it's not
maybe we'll
worth
do
the
a
watch.
review on that. I don't know.
I
Different
think
YouTube
it's
channel.
a fun ride
Yeah. Anyways, no more.
if you
promo
like
for
to be
Severance.
bored and like just saying.
All right. Anywho, so yeah, so Kuma, I don't know.
I think that's a cool theory, Killer Cam, but I don't know how quickly like Bonnie would be able to like mimic her dad's devil fruit and then apply such a high level thing maybe without practicing or someone showing her how to do it or that thought even coming across.
She needs to
think-
get good at her devil fruit for
yeah,
sure.
I think the
Yeah.
interesting thing is this, right? So like, you have two options, right? If Kuma is going to be revived, which I think he will, but you have two options. The first option is Vegapunk restores himself and basically unlocks the centers of Kuma's brain that have been shut off and basically have disabled his sense of free will, right? The other one is the Bonnie thing. I think thematically, the idea of Bonnie saving her father is much more interesting than like Vegapunk just whipping up some science thing. You know what I mean?
1000%.
So like I would actually like to see like and Mugi, I get your point where it's like, okay, is it really his memories that are going to restore his consciousness? Like I get that argument, but
Well,
let's
I
just
just
say
think
like
he also just like still has those memories that he would be receiving from Bonnie. I think they're
Sure.
inside
Yeah.
him, all right? Like still.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I don't know how much I'd like to see that too.
yeah.
But I don't know how her giving him just a duplicate of his memories is going to help. I think if he's going to come back, he needs to be like totally reversed from that like splicing of his
Well,
brain or whatever.
So,
If not just a
Yeah.
duplicate of his own memories, a portion of hers.
yeah,
Or the entirety of her memories and her experiences as a human being. And I
Yes.
think just him knowing about the existence of his daughter and that she was in danger was enough to spur him into action, regardless of the fact that he doesn't have his own free will. And so if he were to be able to witness the life that his daughter was able to live without him, right? And be able to have that received in first person through her passing on her memories through the pawpaw or the interpretation of the pawpaw fruit from her powers, I think that could be a catalyst to
Oh, I like that.
helping.
I like
Yeah,
it
I
being
think it
her
could help.
memories
Mhm.
being given to
Yeah.
him.
He just
Rather than
triggers
him
his
just
stuff
like
back.
receiving already
For
what he,
sure.
I get you. I get what you're saying.
yeah.
And I
I
could
like
see it as something where it is a joint or collaborative effort between Vegapunk and Bonnie to resuscitate or bring Kuma back to full consciousness, right? And so I think that there will be an aspect of science that needs to be done to, one, get him back into a functional state,
Yeah.
but also to help kind of put the pieces back in place that would allow him to restore his free will. And then Bonnie and her memories could serve as the catalyst to effectively jumpstart him or reboot his memory or his own free will in that
I like
sense.
that a lot. You want to know what that would do? That would make a really good cover story.
I don't think that we're
Oh,
gonna
we
get
need a
that.
new cover story.
I don't think I think that if we got a cover story, I think it'll be after Elbaf, basically Bonnie and Kuma go on their own little venture, and like he will have already been restored. They're having like a daddy-daughter kind of like sailing around the world and having experiences and eating ice cream and all these things that they talked about doing. And then I think that they will get reintroduced into the story because, you know, they are still fighters, right? They'll get reintroduced to the story when it is necessary for like all hands on deck to come and support Luffy. One thing that I want to add though is like, I think it has to be said that Bonnie's fruit is not like the age fruit. She has a reality warping fruit. She literally can warp reality, right? Sort of kind of like Orihime and like Bleach, right? So the idea that she can like warp reality outside of herself is also something that we've seen because, you know, and it's temporary, but she's been able to revert people's ages, right? Like that's just
Like possibilities.
Yeah, like that's an application of the fruit where she can, you know, you now have like a young, you know, future, whatever you want to call it, right? Or you now have an old future or whatever it is. Like it's not time, it's reality. So it is possible, and obviously Oda can write this however he wants, but he can write a way in which she can kind of revert the reality of Kuma being like, you know, effectively almost kind of like brain dead into maybe a more kind of functional, conscious version of himself, right? And I don't know. I mean, I guess you still be maybe arguing with the time limit, but obviously her fruit is broken and no one really knows what it can do and for how long. And I don't even think she really does. Which, by the way, I mean, that devil fruit is like crazy powerful. Like, I'm surprised the world government's like not
Broken.
like it's probably more powerful than Ope Ope to me. Like that's pretty crazy. But
You talk about Bonnie's devil fruit?
yeah,
I think
it's just
definitely.
like
she
that-
could use
I
the
don't-
Ope Ope.
Is
no
she
Mi
kind of
in
like
certain cases.
Star and Stripe from My Hero?
Yeah, like
she
Loki.
can just kinda
yeah,
change her reality.
that was a really. I mean, I don't want to talk about this for too long. It's gonna get us off. That is such a creative power, like to just
I love
designate
that. I love
a
it so
rule, and like she had like 2 or something like that. That was crazy.
Yeah,
I gotta go
no,
back and read that fight.
Without going off topic, I think that's an interesting topic in itself in the world of One Piece. is Bonnie's devil fruit, because how many correlations have we gotten now between Nika, Luffy's Gear 5, and Bonnie's devil fruit mimicry, or whatever you want to call it? So I think other than her like
Mm,
saving her dad and bringing her his consciousness back, she
mhm.
might have a way bigger storyline to play in the end game when it comes to that, just because she's been referenced in that. And
I,
she can also go straight from 0 to Gear 5 just like that, so maybe she doesn't even need to practice how to use a devil fruit before she can use the full content of its power.
And it's crazy she can
mm,
do that from literally seeing it like once.
We've
yeah,
talked about this in the past,
That's
we
and
have.
it
crazy.
was a big
Yeah,
thing for us. This
Oh,
it
exact
I didn't like
was.
it.
thing. We were like,
I didn't
how is
like it.
she
Like
able
she
to get
sees it
right
once
to
and
Gear
she's like,
5?
I
Yeah.
can do that now. Like all that you had to basically
That's
die
crazy.
to
It's
unlock
so
Gear
crazy.
Fifth. I can just do it because I see. I mean,
But no,
she's like a
the
copy
reality
ninja.
of the
She's like
situation.
Kakashi.
Well, I would say she's less significant or impactful than
Oh,
Kakashi.
for sure.
Kakashi was
Kakashi's
able
the
to like
Yeah.
goat. Kakashi is
copy
the goat.
something and take like the full power of it. Whereas with Bonnie, I think that hers is an imitation at best, and I think that that's how it's been interpolated in the storyline as well. Like
Well, it
she
tires her
changed
out,
into the Nika form, and then it was gone like this,
but her
right?
body
Yeah.
can't
So
handle it. That's the reason.
and I would
Yeah.
imagine that that is also somehow a limitation, not
Mm.
necessarily a complete limitation, but a limitation of her ability to leverage her devil fruit
Mm.
to the the fullest extent of another devil fruit. And the thing that we had brought up that we addressed was that Vegapunk actually very articulately described how devil fruits came to be and how their powers exist and manifest, and how imagination, will, and intention
Mm.
all contribute towards what the powers are that a devil fruit is actually able to exhibit. And so I think that we've actually seen many different examples of a devil fruit being OP or overpowered, but we just never really interpreted it in that way.
Mm.
And what I think it is just an expression of imagination through the abilities that are provided by that devil fruit. So in the example of Kuma and the pawpaw fruit,
Mm.
him being able to push out memories or copy of memories, that's not a very direct line of sight from somebody that just receives the the repel fruit. That's not an initial idea that somebody might have in order to leverage that kind of power, but it's only with the imagination and the intention of the user that they can start to call upon more powers or these tangential abilities that are somewhat related to their power. And so with Bonnie, with hers being the age fruit, she's interpreting a different future for herself by leveraging the other powers. And so it does seem very reality bending or warping.
Hmm.
Luffy's own Gear 5 is very reality warping. But at the same time, we see other examples of that that just may not be to the same extent. And so I think that that's something that we can take into consideration. Because even Brooks' power, like him being able to turn into a soul and to be able to like move around like that, that's so
Yeah.
fascinating. And that's like a broader advancement of his abilities. And I love to see Oda taking that kind of perspective on the devil fruits,
Mm.
because
Hmm.
it's something that other animes or mangas do a good job of expounding upon as well.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that you mentioned about Brooke, and this is just like an aside, I think it's really easy to forget. Brooke's little powers were able to remove the souls from homies, like in
Right.
Whole Cake Island. Like, that was a crazy thing at
Yeah.
the time because, like, effectively that's life force, right? You could kind of treat it maybe like the Kage Kage no Mi, where it's a removal of a shadow, but nobody else was able to do that. It was just Brooke. I think he like plays the guitar or something like that, and like revs up his soul energy, and like all of a sudden, all you see is these homies like basically just kind of like collapse or whatever. It's just kind of an
Hmm.
interesting
Hmm.
application of his powers, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think just a couple more things on Kuma, which I just think are kind of interesting. And this again, we're really kind of hammering home. Kuma is in design, in disposition, like personality, and in action, of course, like in relation to he basically takes this kingdom under his wing as this quote unquote tyrant, but obviously that's just a nomenclature, given by the world government because he is defying them in a way that protects the have-nots of this particular land. But just there's a lot of different elements of Kuma, particularly, hinted at from the beginning when we first really kind of see Kuma, that lend itself to his disposition, obviously, before we even get into the flashback. So one thing I want to point out is like, we see Kuma called to like effectively like the reverie sort of by the world government, right? It's him, it's Doflamingo, and basically he is known and said specifically in that moment to be like the most loyal. We obviously now know why, because he was basically being extorted by the world government. But what's interesting is like when we see him really for the first time in Thriller Bark, where he's actually speaking and interacting, particularly with Perona and Nami, right? Because they're the first people who actually see Kuma as he arrives to Thriller Bark. He asks people where they want to go before he like, in a very, I don't know, let's say non-violent way, sends them, like vanishes them away, like because they land in like a little paw pillow, whatever, and like drop down and they're more or less kind of unharmed. But it's just a very interesting way of utilizing his powers, right? Like specifically, like where would you want to go? I mean, it's almost like it's like a vacation, right? Like an act of service, right? There's other elements where in that same arc, he's talking to Zoro, and obviously we know the famous nothing happened scene, but when he's talking with Zoro and he makes effectively like the giant paw bomb, right, filled with pain and suffering, the exact words that he gives to Zoro are basically, would you like to see a glimpse of hell? Which is interesting, right? Obviously, Zoro's like the king of hell, whatever, but that's not really why he said that. But it's just interesting, again, when we have this kind of juxtaposition of like kind of Christian religious symbolism, right? Like, whatever. And then obviously, like in the case of Mary Joie, like this is after he more or less is just a functioning robot that is being mistreated. We see him, he's like stabbed full of like swords and stuff like that. He gets crucified in Mary Joie. Like I'll pull up the image on the when I edit the video, but like there's literally an image where he's like being crucified. And obviously, again, like I'm just kind of really kind of hitting this drumbeat of he is being specifically compared to a Christ-like figure within the world of One Piece. And even in the case of this daughter Bonnie, it's kind of like a immaculate conception, right? Since we don't know who the father is, it's probably some celestial dragon, some world noble, maybe a god's knight.
Debaucherous conception.
Yeah. I mean, like really some really evil stuff.
No.
But like, it's just kind of interesting where like even this daughter that
Kuma
he's
was
raising,
celibate, right? He wasn't hitting Jenny.
Yeah, no, I mean they were married, but I don't think they ever. I mean, I don't know. Obviously, it's One Piece. I don't think
Were they married?
I don't.
They hit. He just doesn't.
I don't think we're ever going to see it. They wanted to get married, and I think like she ends up getting kidnapped like right after that. So I don't think they ever got married. But the point being is like
exactly.
Even this like baby that comes is kind of in this really dark kind of immaculate conception. So and I just think it's really interesting like what references Oda kind of takes in and plays with. Right. I mean, obviously right now we're getting like a ton of like Norse mythology. But I think it's kind of undeniable that like the way that Kuma is presented, particularly through his backstory, where like every terrible thing that can happen to somebody happens to him in like a very short span. He's put into slavery. His parents are killed indiscriminately, like for absolutely no reason. He's beaten, fast forward, like his wife is kidnapped and SA'd and, there's a kid out of it and all this other kind of stuff. I mean, he just gets treated like dirt. But the entire time he's this selfless, he is the embodiment and the epitome of hope. He still believes in Joy Boy. He still believes in Nika. He still believes that like there is this great savior that's going to come and right the wrongs of this world that like he's experienced firsthand. And we've seen, just to kind of end the point, we've seen people who have experienced the worst elements of the world government. I'm thinking Boa Hancock. I'm thinking Fisher Tiger. And they hate the Celestial Dragons. They hate them. They like want to burn the whole world down, all this kind of stuff. Kuma's the only person who's like really we've seen take all of that the worst, most evil aspects of like humanity and spin that into hope and love. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I just want to say this, like I honestly think Kuma is more Nika and more Joy Boy to some degree, maybe not Joy Boy, but definitely Nika than Luffy is. Obviously, Luffy's not intentionally trying to be a Luffy. He's not intentionally trying to be a Joy Boy.
Yeah.
Maybe he's set up just in terms of inherited will, whatever.
I love it,
But
Nika.
Kuma is
Yeah.
actively, or maybe passively, it's just the way that he is, but he embodies these characteristics more so than any other character we've seen, including the main character, Luffy.
Yeah,
I could see that.
I agree.
One thing I would say is that gives me a little bit of hope or credence to believing that that's part of the reason why Kuma is still alive, right? For the sake of the plot development and the understanding. Because I think Luffy could only ever really hear and receive fully the legacy of Nika from someone like Kuma, right? For him to like really hear it and understand it. Like even Vegapunk was trying to tell him about it. He's like, "Yeah, nah, I'm not trying to hear all that."
Well, can I?
You know?
Sorry, I don't want to cut
Yeah.
you off, but I want to add one thing. We need to see them talk.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think that that's the pivotal
will.
point that we haven't gotten
Yeah.
yet, and why Kuma is still alive, so that
Mhm.
he can talk to Luffy and really give him the context and the history of what Nika means to the world and why he's so important, and to also be a role model, right? A guiding symbol of what it would look like to really be this pacifist world liberator, right? Like, even though he doesn't have the distinct role of being the liberator of the world like Dragon does, I think with Luffy being the way that he is, he's going to need some kind of guidance and context as to why his representation as the current world's Nika is going to be so important. And so I think that Kuma would be a great way to provide him that context and to really make it hit home.
Moogie.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think his connection to like a Christ-like figure, he made a pretty incredible sacrifice, and he carried it through. All of the pain, everything, perfect embodiment of hope. He just still remained positive. Never had any complaints about his sacrifice. He's the best. I hope Kuma in the future comes back, and we get to see both him and Bonnie experience Nika together and do the dance again. That's where I'm at, dude.
Bash.
I like that. Yeah, man, the more and more I think about it, and the more and more I hear you guys talk about it out loud, the more and more I'm understanding that Kuma's character design as a whole is very intricate from start to finish. I mean, the way Oda writes him in, you know that Oda planned for this
Yeah.
story from the beginning, from the jump, because Kuma, to Mr. Wadenfree's point, Kuma could be that next level Unk status figure that Jinbei is to Luffy.
Yeah.
We could get that out of Kuma if he gets his memories restored, if he gets his free will, and everything like that with the whole Bonnie discussion. I mean, he could be that next level, that gateway to the whole Nika story. Like, I really like that point that you brought up.
I do too. That's good.
Yeah, that was firework, amazing, spot on. But yeah, I mean, Kuma's just his detail and his character's development. We're getting the backstory now in the anime, and to see that is great. But Kuma's kind of just been that mentor in the shadows that's just been helping Luffy behind the scenes the entire time. Not just Luffy, the entire crew, right? And pre time skip, we get that. I don't think we understand how profound that is. That he sends each crew member to their specific place so that they can get over a weakness to make it to that next level, to that next power up. We get Sanji going to the Kanaken
Kamabaka.
Yeah, the Kamabaka Island. You get Zoro going to Mihawk. So this is strategic. And do we know if Kuma has his will as he's doing these things? He has to have some sort of knowledge of what's going on. Otherwise, he's not going to put the Straw Hats at these pivotal points in the story.
Right.
It's crazy.
Robin with the revolutionaries. Like,
it's like a crazy chess move. And I'm excited to see how he's going to tie it all together in the end.
Well, I think the question, right, is like, why keep Kuma alive at the end of Egghead, right? And I think the reason is because, Mr. Waterfree, to your point, there's more story left to tell, right? There's
Yeah.
more.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
specifically just because we get this flashback where it's basically revealed that like Kuma has taken an interest in watching Luffy develop like all these moments really kind of affirm more and more that Luffy is special, that he's worth really kind of investing in. And obviously his last act is thinking of how do I just try to set up the crew for success, right? I'm going to protect their ship even after quote unquote death. Like I want to continue to kind of aid them, right?
Yeah.
The crew reflects when they come back because that's when Frankie tells them like, I got here first and Kuma was waiting at the ship. And I wasn't really sure what to make of it at first, but as soon as I got here, he was badly damaged. He just got up and then walked away, right? And it seemed as though he was meant or programmed or what have you to be here. And, obviously the ship doesn't have a scratch on it. And in that moment, the whole crew just reflects like Kuma basically gave us a gift, right? Like not only did he obviously protect the ship, but like he gave us the time that we needed to make sure that we were strong enough, capable enough, whatever, to succeed in this overarching, very difficult goal that we have, right? And they feel in that moment that they are fundamentally indebted to Kuma. This is going to be their opportunity to say thank you. This is going to be their opportunity to like actually, hopefully, have a conversation with Kuma. We'll get a little bit of like, hopefully, connective tissue between Dragon and Luffy. But specifically, like Luffy being up to like have a one-on-one with Kuma, and Mr. Waterfree, to your point, for Kuma to express like just what Luffy's presence means for like all of the have-nots of the world, right? And specifically as what it meant for him, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I think, and I'm hoping Oda does this, but that would be like the best use of. You've got Kuma on Elbaf. Obviously, Luffy's gonna, get rid of the baddies, right? But you've got him there. You have everything in place, Vegapunk, Bonnie, to hopefully restore some elements or hopefully full elements of Kuma's consciousness to him. And you have the crew all in one place where they're finally going to be able to meet the person who had like basically enabled them to get to this point. So I don't know. I'm hoping that's what we get from Elbaf.
It's a good build-up.
I think that would be very nice. I think it would be a very nice kind of full circle arc for this obviously looming figure who has really believed in Luffy and specifically believed in the crew. To have that kind of, it's not a reunion because they've quote unquote like, I mean, obviously they've met. Obviously Kuma like sent them all flying in the first place, but like a true kind of reunion on the same terms. Like with a shared with a shared understanding. So that would be my hope for this arc. Hopefully we get it. I think that we're going to be in Elbaf for a while because there's just a lot of lore to get through. You've got the giant tree, you've got Emu, you've got Loki, you've got Vegapunk, you've got Bonnie and Kuma. You've got a lot of different things to kind of put together, but Moogie's smiling because he's read the spoilers.
A lot happening.
Yeah.
He saw the spoilers.
Okay, don't tease us, but
Spoilers.
yeah. Anyways, but that's all I got. I mean, do you guys have any more final thoughts? I love Kuma. Kuma is the shit, and I want to see more of him.
Love Kuma.
I have a.
I love Kuma.
All right, if you are in the One Piece world, and you get faced one-on-one to Kuma, and he's giving you the paw, and he says, "Where would you like to go? Where in the One Piece world would you want to be sent?"
Oh, wow.
It's a good question.
That's a good question.
Okay, question.
What's that?
Am I just like a regular human? Am I like able to defend myself?
Your imagination of yourself in that world.
Interesting.
So maybe you already have a devil fruit, but you're getting Kuma's looking at you.
Okay, I'm gonna take it as like I'm a normal human because if we get to like, am I powerful? Am I not? It gets like, I don't know.
You're normal. You're normie.
If I was a normie, I probably would go to. I think I'd go to Sky Island, dude. I think I'd go to like Shandy or something like that. I think I just want to see that.
That's a good one.
Yeah. That is a really good one.
All right.
I'm curious. I feel like I'm split between Whole Cake Island and Wano. Like Wano specifically now that Momonosuke is ruling.
Yeah.
So that's where I would say I would go. And then the only reason I have a little bit of fascination with Whole Cake Island is it's just like if you're a regular person, like you're not on Big Mom's hit list or anything like
No.
that, you're probably eating really good
I
over
know,
there.
it's
You
food
know,
everywhere.
like you got so much food and the architecture, like buildings made out of food. That'd be such a fascinating place to explore.
Yeah.
Just go around biting everything.
All right.
Now send me to where Sanji went for training, bro.
That's where you want to go? You want to go to
Yeah,
Thailand?
Took my answer,
You said Thailand. You
bro.
said send me to Thailand.
You say you took my answer.
Hey, edit that out, bro. I'm just playing.
That's funny.
That is hilarious.
Moogie, you're frozen a little bit. That's fine. Are you there?
Yeah.
My,
Can
my
you hear us?
internet went wild.
Oh, all good. All good.
Yeah.
So
I'd
how
go
do
to
you-
Amazon Lily.
Hey.
Oh yeah.
Come on.
They might
Yeah,
kill you
okay.
on site,
Sure.
but it's definitely worth the
Yeah, they
risk.
might. It's worth
It's
the
worth
risk.
the
we know
risk.
Luffy. We know Luffy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just tuck it between your legs and be like, I'm one of you guys. I'm one of you girls. I'm with the ladies.
Yeah.
No.
All
They
right.
would
Nah,
really
I'd
kill you when
definitely
they
be
found out.
searching for like a devil fruit somewhere. But
Yeah, no, for
Machi
sure.
Nosu would also be sick. You could just be on Pirate Island partying all day.
Yeah.
You gotta keep your head on a
Oh,
swivel
yeah.
over there for sure.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
the kind of place where you can just get caught in a duel for no reason.
Yeah.
Like a duel to
Right.
the
Place
death.
of opportunity.
Lucky Roo
Like a World
just
of
comes and
Warcraft
shoots you in
duel.
the head randomly, just messing with the pirates.
Exactly.
All right, let's wrap this one up, guys. If you've watched this far, thank you very much. We love talking about One Piece. We love talking about speculative aspects. We do not make theories around here. We're not a theory group, but we like talking about what could happen thematically within the story. Obviously, there's a lot of Kuma love here to go around. Kuma is obviously a great character. Very well written, introduced. This is one of those kind of examples where like Oda actually did plant the seeds of like Kuma way in the beginning. It seems like he always had Kuma in mind and what he'd do with him. And you love to see it. You love to see a plan come together. So with that said, it's your boy's Anime Parley. It's your boy Killer Kim. I'll let the rest of the crew give their sign offs and say goodbye.
Peace and blessings, y'all. It's your boy, Mr. Wild and Free. I think I hit about 1.5 today, so not too bad.
Hey.
Hey.
Yo, it's Moogie Mike. Thank you.
Paw. There you go.
Bash catch him. I'm about to get back to this goat curry.
Oh,
Hey, nice.
Curry goat.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. It's been real. It's been fun. Leave a like, leave a comment, talk your shit. We don't care. I'll respond to you personally. I don't really give a fuck.
And
I'll take all of you on. But yeah, this has been fun, and
I love you.
yeah, we'll do a chapter review this week. Hopefully, drops on Thursday. We'll try to get one out, and then we'll circle back and hopefully drop something fun for you guys on maybe Sunday. We'll see. Anyways, peace.